This guy lived in what we call Sector 4, the rural edge of the county where the pavement ends and the cell service dies. He didn't just own a house, he owned a compound. He was the type of guy who believed zoning laws were a suggestion, and the electric company was part of a global surveillance conspiracy. Mr. Henderson, that's what we'll call him, had a file at the utility office thick enough to stop a bullet. For 10 years, he'd been a nightmare. He refused to trim the trees touching the high voltage lines. He threatened meter readers with lawsuits. He once sent a bill to the CEO for rental of his airspace because the wires crossed his pasture. We usually ignored him. As long as he paid his bill, we let him play king of the castle. But then the mandate came down. The grid modernization project. We were swapping out 50,000 old mechanical analog meters for digital smart meters. This wasn't optional. The old meters were obsolete, inaccurate, and required a human to physically drive out and read them. The new ones were automated. 49,999 customers were happy to get the upgrade. It meant fewer trucks on their property. But Mr. Henderson? He viewed that little plastic digital box as an act of war. I sent Mikey, my youngest apprentice, to handle Sector 4. Mikey is a good kid, fresh out of trade school. He pulled up to Henderson's gate to do the swap. It's a 5-minute job. Pull the ring, pop the glass, plug the new one in. Simple. Mikey came back to the depot an hour later, pale as a sheet. He told me Henderson had met him at the gate with a Rottweiler on a choke chain and a 12-gauge shotgun resting casually on his shoulder. Henderson told him, "You tell your boss that if anyone steps foot on my land with that spy equipment, they're leaving in a box." He claimed the smart meters emit beta waves that control thoughts. Now I've been a field supervisor for 20 years. I've dealt with angry customers, hoarders, and drug dens. But you do not threaten my crew with a firearm. That crosses the line from a difficult customer to an active safety threat. I had two choices. Option A, call the sheriff, get a warrant, and force the installation with a SWAT team. That's messy, it makes the news, and it takes weeks. Option B, I use the rule book against him. I decided to go with option B. People forget that electricity isn't a right. It's a service, and that service comes with a contract. It's called the tariff. And right there in Section 14, Paragraph 2, it says, the utility reserves the right to disconnect service immediately, and without notice if a hazardous condition exists or if access to equipment is denied. I drafted a formal letter. I kept it professional. I didn't mention the gun. I simply stated, we require access to our equipment to perform mandatory maintenance. Failure to provide safe access within 72 hours will result in a suspension of service. He got the letter. He called our office and screamed for 45 minutes. He told the receptionist he had sovereign immunity and that our contract was void. He said, "I dare you to come back. I'll be waiting." He thought he was intimidating us. He thought we were afraid to come onto his property, and he was right. I wasn't going onto his property. I wasn't going anywhere near his gate, his dog, or his shotgun, because he forgot where the power comes from. 72 hours later, the deadline passed. I grabbed Big Dave, my senior foreman. We took the biggest truck in the fleet. We drove out to Sector 4. We didn't turn into his driveway. We didn't even slow down at his gate. I saw him standing there, chest puffed out, waiting for a fight. He looked confused when we drove right past him. He probably thought he'd won. He probably thought, they're scared. We stopped 100 yards down the road, on the public county highway. This is where the primary line runs, the high voltage wires that carry 7,200 volts. From this pole, a smaller wire, the service drop, runs across the field to his house. We set the outriggers. I put on my Class 2 rubber gloves and my face shield. I went up in the bucket. From 30 feet in the air, I had a perfect view of his compound. I could see him running down the inside of his fence line, shouting. I looked at the transformer feeding his property. There's a device called a cutout. It's basically a door with a fuse in it. When that door is closed, power flows. When it's open, nothing flows. Henderson was screaming, "Get away from my lines." But these weren't his lines. This was the utility's infrastructure on public land. I hooked the hot stick into the fuse barrel. I looked at him one last time. I didn't wave. I just pulled. Snap. A blue arc of plasma sizzled for a split second, then vanished. It's a unique sound. The sound of a connection breaking. Instantly, his compound went dead. The security lights died. The hum of his massive central AC unit silenced. Even his electric fence stopped clicking. He was off the grid. Now, usually, this is where the story ends. He pays a fee, we turn it back on. But remember, he threatened my guy with a gun. So I decided to enforce the grandfather clause rule. See, Henderson's house was built in the 1970s. His wiring was ancient. It wasn't up to modern 2026 safety codes. As long as the power stays on, that old wiring is grandfathered in, it's legal. But once service is fully disconnected for a safety violation, the grandfather status is revoked. I walked up to the fence staying on the public side and handed him the reconnection requirements. I said, "Mr. Henderson, your service has been terminated for safety reasons. To reconnect, we cannot just flip the switch. You now need a county building permit. You need a licensed electrician to inspect your entire house. You need to upgrade your breaker panel to the 2026 code. You need new grounding rods. And only after the county inspector signs off will we install the smart meter and turn you back on." He went pale. He knew what that meant. He didn't just need a meter swap anymore. He needed a $15,000 renovation. His old wiring wouldn't pass a modern inspection in a million years. He had just turned a free 5-minute upgrade into a massive construction project. He sat in the dark for a month. He ran a loud, gas-guzzling generator that cost him $50 a day in fuel. The neighbors complained about the noise. The police fined him for the noise. Eventually, he broke. He hired the electricians. They tore his walls open. They replaced his panel. He paid the fines. 6 weeks later, I went back out there. He didn't come to the gate. He stayed inside with the curtains drawn. We installed the smart meter in 4 minutes. We closed the fuse at the pole. The power came back on. He wanted to be a sovereign citizen. He wanted to fight the system. But he forgot that the system controls the voltage. And in the end, the invisible hand of the codebook hits harder than a shotgun ever could. But be honest, forcing him to spend $15,000 on upgrades because he scared my apprentice. Was that justice, or did I abuse my power? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching.